Hello everyone and welcome back to Dragalia Foundry, a fan channel where everything Dragalia Lost can be found. This video is going to contain my review of the upcoming Summon Showcase, and sweet sassy Molassie, this showcase features none other than Kimono Notte. So Notte is getting a special alt in addition to her Gala variant, which is a fantastic adventure in her own right. I'm super excited to see this because not only does this new Kimono Notte look good from a gameplay standpoint as a new light healer, but she's also just one of my favorite characters from the main cast and from the game as a whole in Dragalia Lost. And fun fact, the reason that I actually say Dragalia Lost at the start of my videos instead of Dragalia Lost or Dragalia Lost is because back in the day during the first Dragalia Digest, I thought that Notte pronounced it as Dragalia, and after that, I wanted to take after her. Notte has been such a big influence on me, so of course I had to try change up my style. Now I've heard it pronounced all three ways, so it's still a little bit of a mystery to me. It may depend on who is using the term, but Notte is just such an endearing character. She's a fan favorite. I know some players out there were probably anticipating this showcase, and rightly so, because this is a character that I think many of you are going to want to summon for. So just as a quick reminder, today is the last day if you want to take advantage of any of these New Year's deals and prepare for this showcase featuring Notte, which starts tomorrow. Today is the last day that these special packs, party packs, are available. So I'm probably going to get some of these in anticipation of wanting to go for Notte tomorrow or in a few days when she's available, given that I didn't do the best job saving, so my resources are a little bit diminished here, hoping to replenish with some of these party packs because I really want to summon for Notte. She's just such a great mix of endearing and sweet and cute, and yet inspiring. Her courage, her bravery, her sense of humor, the fact that she speaks with so much candor to the group, I feel like she is the standout for me among the main cast, and so I have to go for her at this point. That's my plan anyway. So besides Notte, this is a Gala Dragalia remix showcase, which means you are going to have 6% appearance rates for 5 stars instead of the standard 4%. And this time around, with this being a remix, here's who's coming back. So Gala Luca is the other featured adventurer here, and then also Gala Thor as a featured dragon. You don't have too many days to summon on this showcase. It starts on the 13th here in my time zone, Central US, and lasts until the 17th. So you are going to want to summon on this, relatively quickly, but it always pays off to wait until the last day of the showcase if you can, so that you can at least get a preview of what's coming next. I don't anticipate anything super special being on the next showcase. I think it might be an elemental focus or maybe a dragon special. I'm thinking it's probably going to be some type of filler banner, and then we'll get a proper brand new banner later in the month. So now might be a good time to spend and summon for Kimono Notte. We are getting that Alberian Royals event later, so depending on your preferences, if some of those are your favorite characters, if you're a big Emil fan or Valix fan, you can always wait. But I have to say, I'm just loving Kimono Notte, so that's my plan, as I've said a couple times now. From a gameplay standpoint, there is at least one thing that I see in her kit that is really unique and special. Actually, a couple of things that I want to highlight. But besides that, I think that the playstyle is going to be very fun, and there's some potential for power that isn't necessarily going to come off the page here directly. The reason I say that is because just like her Gala variant, Kimono Notte has a special transformation into her metamorphosis form, and we really don't see from this page alone what the damage modifiers on that form are going to be like, how the attack animations are going to be for that. So there's a little bit of mystery to exactly how good Kimono Notte will be, but if Gala Notte is any indication, she has a really powerful shapeshifted form, and one of the benefits of that form is even if Notte is on your team but you're not controlling her yourself, if she's one of your backup or backline adventurers rounding out your team, she can still transform as an AI and as a helper to your team. And so I could see that being the case with Kimono Notte here as well. And it seems that she has enough healing that it wouldn't necessarily inhibit her from keeping your team healthy either. So she looks like a strong adventurer. Light is also an element that can get lots of shapeshift gauge quickly and get lots of transformations. So I think that's going to give her the potential to stay in her metamorphosis state even longer. We'll get into her kit here as we quickly reset the game. Sorry about that. I guess the game just can't handle Kimono Notte. It's sad that I already did my login for the day, because one of my favorite things about Notte is she's the one that's there to greet you every day when you log into the game. Anyway, we're logging in for a later second time today, so we don't get that little greeting, but here we are back into the swing of things. Let's go and get into our kit before we get any other unexpected surprises in this video. And of course, just looking at Notte's portrait here, I mentioned how cute it is. Her mega form is really pretty with the kimono as well. And that was shared on the Dragalia Lost YouTube channel, or Nintendo Mobile YouTube channel, I should say. Time to make some New Year's memories. Kimono Notte, she is a light staff unit, and she's a healing unit, so unlike a lot of our recent healers, she's not actually an attack type unit. So Aya Handitoa had that, and Gala Zena had that as well back in the day. So she's actually a proper healing unit, maybe indicating a little bit more healing potential. Your girl Notte is looking mighty sassy in her New Year's kimono, and she's planning on trying new things and making wonderful memories with her friends this year. She even has a new kimono for her grown-up self. Love it. Also, just have to highlight this with Yuden and Zethia presumably there. So cute. Anyway, her skills here are Fairy Sunrise, Fairy Fortune. Her co-abilities are Recovery Potency plus 20%. Her chain co-ability is Light Combo equals Shapeshift Prep 5. And then her abilities are New Year's Metamorphosis 2, Poison Res 100%, and Skill Prep 100%. So I'm going to try to be very objective here and just say that if your light teams are already pretty well equipped, if you already have Gala Luca, you may not need to summon on this showcase. You may have Gala Zena as a relatively good light healer, a Hildegard for when you need some more heavy-duty healing, or even Vixel is pretty good in that role too. I'm going to be completely honest, from a gameplay standpoint, you may not need to go for this showcase. And so, as excited as I am, I do want to provide that as a caveat. You know, there may be some out there who sadly are not fans of Notte. If you're in that situation, or if you're just on a budget, free to play, maybe you don't have the resources, I totally understand that perspective. And so I will say, I think Gala Luca and Kimono Notte look great. Thor is a little iffy. He's not so good in Curse of Nihility content, which now includes, or will include, the Primal Dragon trials, as those continue to release, as well as the Sinister Dominion, including on the Legend difficulty. So that is a definite weakness. Thor can be used in other contexts like the Mercurial Gauntlet and in the Agito if you're still working on that. But the other thing about Thor is just the existence of these more powerful dragons like Reborn Jean and most recently Kronos Nyx. Thor starts to feel a little bit weaker and more obsolete. Now maybe they give Thor that fifth unbind a little bit more quickly than some of the other dragons, or maybe all of the other Gala dragons save Cat Sith, and that could be a game changer. But as of now, Thor is a little bit of a burden on the showcase, or it's not the thing that you really want to get. So that's my objective take on the showcase from a value standpoint. But let's talk about Kimono Notte here. I started getting into her kit and then cut away. So let's talk about that. The two things that I want to highlight right off the bat that I think are special about her are, one, she is able to remove all afflictions from the entire team. And then two, she has this light combo equals shapeshift prep 5. I think these two things give her a great amount of potential. The chain co-ability, I'll start there this time around. Her co-ability of recovery potency, probably not going to make a world of difference for the rest of your team, given that she's likely to be the primary source of healing, so it's mostly going to benefit her. But this chain co-ability is similar to the ones seen on Gala Leonidas and Gala Notte, or parallel stem, it's just in the light element. And this is actually very, very good at quickly building up dragons. And if the content you're facing doesn't have any kind of restrictions on when you can shapeshift and when not, it can often give you a few extra dragons in a particular battle. And sometimes that can make the difference in your damage output and be quite strong. In the light element in particular, there are a few limitations on that, one of which I would say is kind of Chronos Nyx and just the way Chronos Nyx works as a whole. Because Chronos Nyx doesn't have a normal shapeshift duration, and the shapeshift time is consumed by actions that you take, you can stay in Chronos Nyx form for a very long time, which means you often don't necessarily need as many transformations to get the same amount of dragon time action in a battle. So that's one slight limitation. But on the positive side of things, the light element has battles in which shapeshifting is kind of an essential mechanic. So Tartarus is one of those battles, and the light Agito weapons provide some extra shapeshift gauge with their skill use as well. So I think that the question would be, is there a point where you just have such an abundance of shapeshift gauge that this doesn't really help you as much as it does in the wind and flame elements? And I think that is a possibility, but I still see this as a really valuable chain code ability. It's one of the better ones in the other elements. I still think it's quite good in the light element here too. And the other thing that I wanted to highlight, I mentioned, was the ability to remove all afflictions from the entire team. We've seen with the recent release of Primal Midgardsormr, I guess it's a month ago at this point, so not the most recent, but still the newest in the Primal Dragon series, we've seen that he can cause the Stormlash affliction. And currently there's no healer that cleanses that specifically, and so it's only the healers that have the ability to cleanse all afflictions collectively that are able to actually remedy that. And so similarly, if we get some kind of shadow boss in the future, let's say we get Primal Zodiarch, and Primal Zodiarch might cause Shadow Blight instead of causing poison or curse, or maybe it'll cause all three, well, this might be one of the only ways to actually be able to deal with that, and damage over time afflictions can be tuned to be as punishing as the developers want them to be. Early in the game's lifespan, we got Heilbrunhilde, and in her dragon trial, if you got burned, it always ticked you down to 1 HP. Shadow Blight could be tuned in a similar manner to always tick you down to 1 HP if it's something the devs were looking at and interested in, right? So I think that that is a question here, that, that affliction cleanse universally is kind of exciting. There's the other element to this where for neutral element content, Kimono Notte being in the light element, Sandalphon we've seen with her universal affliction cleanse, she's water element, but you can kind of bring her to other types of content. You can bring Sandalphon to Asura's trial, at least on the difficulties that allow off element, and she's a fine healer there that's able to help you achieve auto on the expert difficulty. Now, Sandalphon's AI didn't fare so well when she gained the ability to shapeshift on her own, but Notte's AI has generally been pretty good so far with her metamorphosis state, Gala Notte that is, so I'm hopeful for Kimono Notte that, maybe she could be used similarly in off-element content, and that affliction cleanse is going to help protect her as well, since she has just her poison res here. She also has skill prep 100%, which nowadays you kind of tend to see stronger variants of skill prep on spiraled adventurers, where they get some skill charge in addition or get some other secondary effects in addition. But this is still something that's pretty valuable to have on healers, especially in fights where there are immediate mechanics that pose a threat, like an opening salvo or blast of sorts. Some immediate affliction that might need to be cleansed right away could be another situation. I will say that with the addition of this extra Wormprint slot that we now have from Kaleidoscape, you can get skill prep 50% on those prints in the secondary slot of those prints. And so that sort of diminishes a little bit the need for skill prep, But there are all sorts of other things that you can do with that slot, and I think ultimately the Kaleidoscape prints, for the time being, are going to depend a lot on what you're rolling anyway and what you happen to get. So certainly you could get other types of abilities that would complement Not, and not have to use skill prep in that slot, given that she already has it. So finally, let's kind of get into the nitty-gritty here, after all of that prelude. The first skill here, Fairy Sunrise, is shareable with a share cost of 6. It restores HP to all teammates and continues gradually healing over time. It also restores additional HP to all teammates based on the number of butterflies the user currently has summoned, increases the entire team's shadow resistance if the user has 6 or more, then consumes all summoned butterflies. If you're shapeshifted, this will instead deal damage to multiple targets and enemies near those targets and inflict flash burn. Also deals additional damage at the location of the user's summoned butterflies, including those summoned by the user's second skill, and consumes them. So, when you're not shapeshifted, this is going to provide gradual healing over time and an immediate burst heal. And for every butterfly that you have summoned, you're going to, get additional HP, and then if you have 6 or more, is when you get the shadow res. Okay. So this appears to play similarly to Mine. Mine is another fairy adventure, of course, in Dragalia Lost. She's a bow type adventure, but her basic attacks, instead of shooting out arrows, she summons butterflies, and her attacks, her skills, are powered up based on the number of butterflies that are spawned. I will say Mine is not the easiest character to use. She can have a little bit of a learning curve because her butterflies are often slow to release, so that might be something to watch out for here with Not. But the ability to switch into her shapeshifted form, and I don't know if she'll wield a sword in her shapeshifted form like her Gala variant or exactly how she'll attack, but just having a larger hitbox, or I don't know if hitbox is what I'm trying to say, but a larger area of effect on her attacks. Not the fact that she's bigger, but just the fact she's going to be like swinging in a wider radius potentially, hitting in a wider area even with her skills. That could bode well for the ease with which she can deal with enemies. Mine is actually pretty much fine in most content. It's really, I feel, Kaleidoscape where she struggles a bit because there's so many enemies to deal with. And so not having this built-in shapeshift option could make Kaleidoscape potentially a lot easier for her. So remains to be seen exactly how her transformed combos will work at the time of recording, but you are getting that flash burn when shapeshifted too, which will probably come in handy against Iblis, so glad to see that available there. And as far as the healing goes, good amount of immediate recovery potency, and kind of a usual amount of HP regen, but certainly nice to see, with a good chunk of shadow res too. So certainly on the defensive side of things, shadow res not affected by Curse of Nihility, HP regen not affected by Curse of Nihility, so those will be viable in Sinister Dominion and Primal Dragon content. And then when shapeshifted, you get to deal the damage here and then cause flash burn. Okay, so second skill, Fairy Fortune restores HP to all teammates, removes all afflictions from the entire team, and increases the modifier applied to damage against shadow-attuned enemies for the entire team. Aha! Okay, so all affliction cleanse, restores HP, and you get extra damage. Also fills the user's metamorphosis gauge based on the number of butterflies the user currently has summoned. Increases the entire team's max HP. Yo, that's a third thing that's quite good here. If you have 6 or more, then consumes all summoned butterflies. When shapeshifted, it deals damage to surrounding enemies and summons 4 butterflies that will circle the user for 13 seconds. These butterflies will disappear when the user's shapeshift ends. Very interesting, very, very interesting. So the max HP I had missed on first read, that is also very valuable in healers. It just provides an extra level of protection to your entire team. It's going to mean that you're dying less often to unavoidable attacks, or even to corrosion. Corrosion is just less threatening if that is something that you're facing in the content that you're taking on. Currently, you're already using Light Adventurers to battle against Lilith in the second phase on Legend difficulty, and in the future, we're going to use them in the first phase against Iblis as well. And so Lilith is a fight where you do need to deal with that corrosion mechanic, but she doesn't have as many unavoidable attacks. Most of them can be dodged, if not all of them. So it's probably not super necessary. I know a lot of players have cleared that content already, but if you're struggling with it, I'm sure that Kimono Notte could be effective there. And then for Iblis, the opportunity to provide flash burn is something that may be valuable depending on how many times that he has to be flash burned to deal with his mechanics. So the other thing to point out here is the extra light attuned damage. So that is one reason why Notte won't be as effective against neutral element content. We saw a similar thing with Fudomyo-O as a dragon and Gozu Tenno before that. That makes them slightly different than the Gala Reborn dragons. The Gala Reborn dragons, they do extra damage against elemental opposite foes. The foes that they're strong against, I should say, where you're super effective, basically. And they also do extra damage against enemies with no elemental attunement, like Morsayadi or like Tsukuyomi recently. Notte's not going to work that way. Fudomyo-O doesn't work that way, and Gozu Tenno don't work that way. They all have to be against the right type of enemy. So in this case, it has to be against a shadow enemy that you're going to get the extra light attuned damage, which is basically going to mean that one phase of Iblis, the one phase of Lilith, or Lilith on the earlier difficulties, Tartarus, and in the future, Primal Zodiarch. So a little bit more limited as far as where you're going to get the bonus damage. And the fact that this is Shadow Res here too, although I'm sure Notte may be able to be used off element, if that were just pure defense or something like that, that might be more applicable. So it's a little bit more focused in. She'll certainly be most effective against shadow foes. And in the Kaleidoscape too, elements or enemies have no element most of the time as far as I've seen. So this wouldn't necessarily be effective there either. But having said that, another good amount of recovery potency at a reasonable skill energy cost if her SP gain is similar to that of a normal staff unit. And then all affliction recovery is good. The max HP bonus is good. And I think the way that this is going to play out is that you're going to basically want to always have 6 butterflies summon when you're using your skills for maximum benefit here. And the circling butterflies, the damage does look on the low side, but that's a supplement to the standard attacks that Notte is going to be doing, hopefully. And I guess you do get that immediate hit of damage, but it does look a little on the low side, I would say. I'll be curious to see just how stifling these are. Something that could help in Kaleidoscape is if these stun enemies in place by repeatedly hitting them. That might be kind of nice. Right now what I'm imagining is that it might work similar to Mega Man's Leaf Shield, which I haven't used Mega Man in so long, come to think of it, that it's been a while since I thought about how that might be implemented. But let's finally read here about Notte's New Year's Metamorphosis 2 ability. This is what grants her a unique shapeshift called Metamorphosis and replaces the Dragon Gauge with a Metamorphosis Gauge. Tapping the gauge after it is filled to a certain threshold will allow the user to shapeshift, and when shapeshifting, the user will use Metamorphosis to transform regardless of what dragon they are equipped with. By tapping the gauge a second time or after the gauge has been consumed, the user will return to their original form. So this has pros and cons. One of the benefits is that it allows multiple members of your team to be transformed. So you could shapeshift into a dragon with your lead character, and your Notte, who is your AI-controlled companion, she can also use her metamorphosis at the same time, and often that can lead to greater damage potential. Many times these unique transformation characters do a lot better when they're in their transformed state, but then some of the cons are that a lot of the mechanics centered around transformation and shapeshifting, like Dragon's Claws and Dragon's Skill, they don't work with these special transformations most of the time. So in many cases, if you're summoning your persona, or you're going Dragon Drive, or you're in Divine Dragon as, let's say, Tiki, you're not actually getting those benefits that let's say a Zanefried might get or a Gala Mim, that actually do transform into a dragon. So this is quite good in the Kaleidoscape because you're actually not limited on how many times you can transform if you're playing one of these types of characters. And in most other modes, it's quite helpful too, but it is still affected by things like Yaldabaoth's Twisted Blessing. So if there's mechanics that stop you from shapeshifting, it's usually going to stop Metamorphosis, Dragon Drive, Divine Dragon, that type of thing as well. On net, I think that it's a positive. These types of characters are usually good on a team, but it ultimately comes down to like their unique play style. So for instance, a lot of the Dragon Drive characters early on had to be at a low HP, so it's sort of hard to make that work under AI control. In more recent days, we've gotten Farron, we've had our Welfare character from this raid event that play in Dragon Drive style, or Urias is another example, but don't necessarily have as restrictive of a kit, so they do tend to work pretty well to round out teams. So I think that Nat will fall into that category, that she'll be a good complement to most types of teams. And here you see that she also grants all teammates a life shield equal to 20% of the user's maximum HP at the start of quests. This is kind of a flavor ability, I want to say. Like, this is something that we've seen on other fairy characters in the past. So it just seems to be something that, like, design-wise, it doesn't usually come up or matter all that much, but it's like a connective tissue or a motif that is something that's to do with fairies. And essentially, like, Peony had this, I think Mine has this too. So yeah, this does come up often, and it can help. It can help with things like onslaught events, like not taking damage. If there's any bonus points you get for being at max HP, it can help with that sort of thing. And just in general, for AI, they tend to not get hit that much, so that life shield can last for quite a while into a fight if there's no unavoidable type of attacks. So also, the user's standard attacks, force strikes, and dash attacks will instead summon butterflies that pursue the target. These butterflies will disappear upon shapeshifting or when the user's shapeshift ends. The user's force strikes will also restore HP to all teammates. So that is interesting. So maybe her AI will be programmed to focus on force striking, and as she summons those butterflies, she'll also heal the entire team. In addition, using the first or second skills, including while shapeshifted, will grant them a critical damage amp with a maximum team amp level of 1. Okay, interesting. After this amp is granted, the ability will not grant it again for 8 seconds. That's also kind of interesting. So that opens up a little bit more damage potential here. In addition to her chain co ability, she doesn't have overdamage, so that's one of the things that's a little unfortunate as far as her kit. So probably would want to bring that as a shared skill, but not necessarily on Not herself, because once she's shapeshifted or once she's in her metamorphosis state, I'm not sure if she'll actually be able to use her shared skills in that state, if she's anything like Gala Not. So all in all, I really feel like the cleanse, the max HP, and then this chain co ability are the most interesting things about her kit, which bode the best as far as her future potential. There's no overdamage, so that is a consideration. And the specifics of her transform states and how her AI works, how her fairies spawn relative to Mine's, I think those are the other things to consider here that may affect, how good Not will ultimately be. But in my book, she is still the best girl. So I'm going to be summoning for her. Let's talk a little bit about Gala Luca and Gala Thor before we call it a day. Gala Luca is a very powerful adventurer who is a great adventurer to equip a powerful dragon onto and to be shapeshifted into your dragon state. Something unique about Gala Luca is the Shining Slash skill, which its critical rate is increased by 10% for each buff with a different icon applied to the user, but it also affects the critical rate of attack skills in dragon form as well. And this should apply when this is used as a shared skill, is my understanding. That's why I've used it as a shared skill in the past. So I think that that's something pretty special to Gala Luca. And in general, Gala Luca can also boost his critical damage a high amount, has this nice strength co-ability, and has the ability to accumulate buffs on himself. And this doesn't even show his mana spiral, which is also going to add strength amps, I believe, into the mix. He's just a really powerful DPS adventurer, one of the better blade adventurers in the game, I think. This skill works pretty well with Gala Thor even because it's his one attacking skill. Generally, he will potentially have an Agito skill that he could use too, but it's usually going to be the skill you'll want to have energized when you attack with it, or have Thor's transform skill be energized and get the critical rate buff to be a very powerful damage dealing nuke, so to speak. So he can also be used with Chronos Nyx very effectively if you have a Gala Yuden on the team too for that dragon damage type of co-ability that will also contribute. But it's generally pretty easy to get a lot of different buff icons in the light element. So Gala Luca ends up being a powerful DPS adventurer. Now you can only shapeshift with one character per team, barring those kind of special transformations, so that is one thing to consider. If you already have Gala Yuden and you're using him to transform into Chronos Nyx, do you need Luca on your team? I would say if he's not shapeshifting, he's good as a team member, but he doesn't have Dispel or Flash Burn or Paralysis or anything like that. So his utility is somewhat limited if he's not your main DPS option. I think compared to like Rosarda or Halloween Laxi or Gala Audric, all of them are going to provide something to your Gala Yuden composition that Luca doesn't quite have. So that is one weakness. Talking about Gala Thor, we covered sort of at the beginning of the video, but he does have a really powerful skill that you can charge up. He can deal really high hit count with his basic attack style. That's just a flurry of blows. And, at one point in time, he was quite a strong dragon with his ability to use energy levels to power up the strength of adventurers, and certainly can synergize well with like the mana spiraled Annalie or Lucretia or maybe Vixel, but I wouldn't really go for that necessarily compared to just like a High Jupiter or something. But unfortunately, Nihility inhibits energy, and so that really neutralizes the effectiveness of Thor in Primal Dragon content and, generally speaking, in Sinister Dominion content. On the earlier difficulties, there are some techniques where, if you shapeshift at the right time, you can avoid getting Nihility, or if you demolish a part of the boss at the right time, you can avoid it perhaps. But by the harder difficulties like Master and Legend, it just doesn't seem like a super viable strategy or super important, particularly in solo. So for that reason, Gala Thor feels very obsolete in that content. Even your 5 Unbind Dragons that you can get, and you can unbind for free from the Draconic Essences in the main campaign, are going to be better for you. Maybe Thor has been nerfed enough that they'll actually give him an extra unbind, and perhaps that'll solve all his problems. It'll make his energy special and immune to Nihility, and then we'd be talking about something relevant here. But in a world of Reborn Jean and Chronos Nyx, I just don't see it for Gala Thor. Even Daiko Kuten and 5 Unbind Cupid are going to be better options for you. So that is pretty much going to do it for today, everyone. This is my take on the showcase. Of course, I think I'm blinded a little bit by just wanting to summon Kimono Notte and add her to the roster, but I tried to be objective as well and give some of the pros and cons, advantages, disadvantages to the characters on offer. I will plan on summoning on this one, perhaps against my better judgment, but I just really want to show support to the character that I like. So expect that video in the next few days or so. The showcase doesn't last that long, but I'll probably wait until the last day or two. That is going to do it for today though, everyone. Let me know if you're planning on summoning on this one. If not, is your favorite character in the main cast, or if she isn't, then who is? I'd be curious to hear what you have to say. That is going to do it for today though, once again. So thank you as always for watching. Take care, and I'll see you next time.